Hi guys, my name is Sanjay Gupta. I'm a cardiologist in York Hospital, and today I thought I'd do a quick video on the subject of how to get rid of your palpitations naturally. And as you may know, I've already done 3 previous videos on the subject of what you eat, what you drink, sleeping, and now I wanted to concentrate on exercise. Now, before we go on, I'm very keen to stress the fact that this video is for those patients in whom your palpitations have been checked out and you have not been found to have a significant heart problem. By that, I mean that someone has defined your heart rhythm when you have palpitations. Usually that is done by a 24-hour ECG or an ECG. So your GP or your cardiologist will typically say, "Oh, you're just getting extra beats. It's nothing to be worried about. Forget about it." But the problem is, even though they've said that, you don't necessarily feel reassured. You still are aware of this sensation of skipped beats or fluttering. And one of the commonest questions I get is, okay, my GP has told me that they're nothing to be worried about, but I'm really worried about exercising because I'm worried that I may be doing damage to my heart. I may be worried that I'm worried that I might have a heart attack. And so my video today is for those people in whom the GP or the doctor has said there's nothing to worry about, your heart rhythm is okay, or you're just getting simple extra beats or ectopics or PVCs. If you haven't had this done, then the best thing first is to go and get checked out, which is you go to your doctor and ask him to give you a monitor that you can strap onto your chest, and you press a button when you get the palpitations, and then they can look at the monitor and see what the heart rhythm is like at that time. Okay, now let's say you've been checked out and your GP has said nothing to be worried about, extra beats. The patient is still left with the palpitations, and one of the commonest problems they have is, how do they get rid of these palpitations? And there are lots of things that you can do to reduce the palpitations, including watching what you eat, including watching what you drink, and getting more sleep. But exercise is really underrated and a really, really effective measure in trying to get back to good health and getting rid of the palpitations. Okay, the first thing to say is that by when we as doctors see that a person's ectopic beats or their PVCs or PACs get less frequent on exercise, then we consider that a very benign sign. Okay, so in general, people whose ectopics get less frequent with exercise generally do very, very well. Okay, and therefore exercise is actually very good because it suppresses the ectopics. If you find that you're exercising and your ectopics get more frequent, then it's certainly worth getting checked out again, i.e. going to your GP and saying, look, my ectopics are getting more frequent in exercise, in which case what should happen is that your GP should refer you for a supervised exercise test where they can see exactly what happens when you start exercising. But otherwise, you would normally find that your ectopics get less frequent when you exercise. And a lot of people say to me, well, in the middle of the night, what do? I'm getting these ectopics, I can't rest. And I say, well, just, do a little jog or do something to get your heart rate up by exercising, and that will suppress your ectopics and it'll get rid of them for you, even if it's in the middle of the night. Why is exercise so good? And by exercise, I mean moderate exercise. I don't mean, suddenly going and pumping 1,000 kilograms over your head. What I mean is gentle cardiovascular exercise, a jog, a walk, going on the treadmill for, half an hour, something like that. And it usually has to be something you want to do on a regular basis rather than just a one-off. So it doesn't help anyone just to go and do a run for 30 minutes and then not do one again for 3 months. It's much better to do a run for 10 minutes, but then keep that going every day, or keep that going 3 times a week or something like that. Why is exercise so good? Well, the first and foremost thing is exercise has a beautiful, amazing anti-inflammatory effect on the body. We as human beings are more inflamed now than we have ever been since the beginning of man. And the reason for that is that we lead such a hectic lifestyle, the Western lifestyle. We rarely get as much sleep as we ought to. We rarely eat anything which is natural anymore. We are always stressed. And so our bodies are hugely inflamed. And I'm sure that that is the reason why we see so many new illnesses nowadays compared to, say, 100 years ago. And there has been a lot of research looking at the anti-inflammatory effects of exercise. And it has been proven without doubt that moderate regular exercise has a beautiful anti-inflammatory effect on the body. And you know that for yourself, because if you have a cold, or if you're just generally feeling a little bit under the weather, you go for a run, you come back and you'll have shaken off your cold. And people have measured levels of chemicals such as tumor necrosis factor alpha, interleukins, and they've all found these to get more suppressed as a person exercises. So exercise is very good for reducing inflammation levels. And as your inflammation levels go down, the irritability of the heart does get less. The second thing to say is that exercise is a huge stress buster. Okay, remember, we have much higher levels of stress hormones now because of our lifestyle compared to ever before. The problem with the stress hormones is, as the stress hormones go up, they do interfere with our normal electrolyte balance. So stress hormones will tend to push our potassium and magnesium levels into our cells. And that can then cause a relative magnesium deficiency, and that can lead to more ectopics. And exercise is very good because it reduces stress hormone levels and therefore maintains more of an electrolyte equilibrium. The third thing about exercise, that it's extremely good for weight loss. And again, weight loss does contribute to getting rid of some of these ectopic beats, because the more weight you carry, the more pressure the heart is under to try and supply the body. And because the heart is having to work harder, that back pressure can translate into chambers of the heart getting enlarged and thickening, and that can lead to irritability of the heart. So it's also another good idea that by getting more exercise, you're losing weight naturally, and by losing weight, you will find that your heart becomes less irritable because it's under less pressure. Again, it's good for blood pressure in the same way. And that's why, one of the most important and overlooked ways of getting your blood pressure down is by getting regular exercise. Unfortunately, these things are generally ignored these days because you go to a doctor that rarely have any time to speak to you. They give you some medication and get you out of the door. But really, lifestyle modification is a huge thing, and one of the most natural ways of feeling better. So in summary, what I'd like to say is, generally, you should not be worried about exercising. If you find that your palpitations are more frequent on exercising, go and see a doctor and get a stress test. If, on the other hand, you find that your palpitations are less frequent on exercising, then there's no reason why you shouldn't continue to exercise. And you will find that as time progresses, your palpitations will get less and less frequent. And of course, it also helps because you will lose weight. It's good for reducing your stress levels, and it's a hugely effective anti-inflammatory. So I hope this was useful to you. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to get in touch with me. I'm now also on Twitter, and you can contact me on Twitter. And otherwise, you can always visit my website, or you can get in touch with my secretary if you wanted to speak to me. And that's about it, really. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate. Just drop me a line or leave a comment, and I do try and answer all the comments, all the questions I get. Although sometimes I'm quite busy and it does take a bit of time. But I'm really grateful to you for taking the time to listen to me, and I wish you a good night.